Hello, I'm John Grom, and welcome to the 53rd Right and Left Discussion Forum. The purpose of our discussion forum is to demonstrate civil discourse and to show its value in finding truth. Today's topic asks the question, are universities obsolete? Do they have a future as the most efficient and effective way of providing quality higher education? Today's panel, beginning on my left, is Dr. Ronald Chamberlin, a retired senior research electrochemist. On his left is Dr. Natalie Sydorenko, educator, writer, and consultant in the field of communications. On her left is Bryan Laubaugh, president of R&B Financial Services. And finally, Patty Haskins, retired math teacher and current member of the Wadsworth City Council. Ron, it seems almost inevitable to me that at some point in the future, the role of the bricks and mortar university in educating their students will largely, if not completely, be replaced by online instruction. What are your thoughts?
Well, John, since you posed this question some time ago, I've had a chance to do a little bit of reading, and my knowledge is, of course, superficial, but I'm sure that I can bloviate as well as anybody. But you're right about failures perceived and real about contemporary education. I found some recent statistics. The overall graduate rate is only 39% in 4 years and 59% in 6 years. And what's even more disturbing to me, that 36% show no increase in critical thinking skills. Now, when you look at the tendency to believe that you can opt out of whether you believe in science or not, as you know, such things as climate change and homosexuality and whatever, that disturbs me and doesn't surprise me. Critical thinking, it's a scarce commodity. So you need some kind of new compact. Universities have to provide an education that's increasing in quality and decreasing in cost. The cost of the number of student loans have gone up tremendously in recent years. The total thing. My 30-something-year-old daughter-in-law said recently, I wonder if I can trade my fine arts degree back in for a refund. So she's not working in fine arts. So that sort of thing. But so what are you going to do for online education? Well, that's something that's coming along. You see ads for places like University of Phoenix, which do online education, and what's that about, and is it any good? Well, I've ran into a recent study by U.S. News & World Report, where they investigated all of this and set up a ranking scheme and so forth, and I'm just very happy to say that for bachelor's degrees in general, my alma mater, Penn State, came out on top. Ohio State was only number 8, so take that, you Buckeyes. But it has to follow certain things. What do you have to have there? Well, you've got to have good faculty credentials and training for this. Penn State's had a program in place for the year 2000-2001 term. Quite a lot of experience here now. You need to have student services and technology. You need to have student engagement. That is, you need to have, the student has to have the ability to engage the faculty on a one-to-one basis. Because since the time of the peripatetic philosophers, the student-tutor relationship has been extremely valuable in training an individual. So does that happen? How can that happen?
How can it happen online, you mean?
How can it happen online? Certainly in one of my fields that I trained in, the chemistry field, you need some hands-on laboratory time. That's expensive stuff. The other one that I trained myself in was control engineering, and that was just out of the books. That was not a problem. And they did rate engineering degrees. They rated schools in those. They rated MBA programs for postgrad degrees. They rated nursing programs. Some of those things seem to me would lend themselves well to that. It's going to take a very high degree from the student, a very high degree of time management skills. Because I've taken some tutorial classes of computer programs that I was interested in. And to find the time to discipline yourself, to spend a unit of time on a regular basis to do that study and do that hands-on manipulation is tough to do. You have to do that, and for a young student, a person in a job, a person coming out into the workforce, to try to advance him or herself into it's going to be a difficult process. Is compared to the extended adolescence of a 4-year college. But I think something needs to be done somehow. Yeah. I don't know what exactly. Online education has great potential, I think. I don't know that it's the final answer here.
Mm-hmm. Natalie, I know that you don't have an opinion on this subject, so we'll move on to Bryan. No, I know you've been thinking about it.
Yes, and I fully admit that I'm 100% completely one-sided. I will never advocate online scholarship. I don't disagree with offering some classes online, classes where you can be self-taught, where you can read the book, where you can interact in a discussion forum. But by and large, I am a liberal arts girl at heart. And then I went to big research university, Purdue, which is not as ranked as high as Penn State, but we're close up there too, Rob.
Yeah. At least for engineers.
Yes, for engineers for sure. For me, there are three main things. One is just, I'm going to put it out there, it might sound dramatic, but it's our humanity. When we are taking online classes exclusively, how are we learning to interact with other people, to tolerate other people, to listen to other people, to understand that listening is important as speaking, in human presence? Yeah, you can wait your turn to type in a discussion forum online, but I'm saying when the person next to you in class is saying something that you feel uncomfortable with, I feel like that's when the important break happens for critical thinking. You are forced to see something beyond who you are. That's lost by just reading it. Reading is important, but you lose the intonation. You lose the expression. You lose the nonverbal communication, which can be up to 70% of someone's message. If you just have the words and you have no nonverbals, you don't understand how that person feels, where they're coming from, what the professor means by what they're saying. So I worry about the humanity. I've already admonished students with their quid pro quo to me. Hey, when was that due? Hey, what's going on? Hey, can you write me this letter of recommendation? Hey, you, how about Dear Natalie? I don't even care if they call me professor, but how about Dear Natalie, do you think you could do this for me? Thanks so much, and sign your name. We just expect everyone to do this online texting as a form of education now, and it's very disturbing to me.
Saw a photograph recently of a group of people sitting in a museum. Here's a beautiful Rembrandt painting on the wall. There's half a dozen people sitting on a bench looking at their phones.
Well, see, and that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And what upsets me the most is the loss of the college experience. I mean, I can remember sitting in a classroom at Purdue University for my doctorate with Dr. Calvin Schrag, who studied under philosopher Martin Heidegger in Germany. And my mind was blown away to be in his presence. He was so humble, he was so kind, he was so intelligent. I did better work for him than for a lesser professor because I wanted to return to him the gift that he was giving to us. So I also fear that loss of experience, of being in wonder, in awe of things that you didn't know, and learning that with other people in community. I feel like there's not that sense online. And finally, I will say that I do have colleagues that have left and went to online universities. One of my friends teaches for American University. It's an exclusively online university. You never meet your professors. Every single class you take, you're degreed online. And my problem is, how can you possibly assign a experiential and in-depth and critical thinking, research-based public speaking course, interpersonal communication course, small group communication course, when you're not working with anyone else, when you don't have the audience? I understand that some classes might lend themselves to that, but human presence, especially in my field, is so necessary. And as you were saying in chemistry, how can you virtually learn these experiments? You have to be hands-on with other people in the lab. And that's no different for communication. So it makes me very, very weary, and I would like brick and mortar to stay forever.
Okay, Bryan, obviously Natalie's still on the fence on this whole issue. Where do you stand?
Well, I think what she said, as well as Ron, has a lot of merit, but the problem is the brick and mortar university is pricing themselves out of the marketplace.
Absolutely, I agree with that, yes.
225% inflation adjusted increase in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I can only go back to, I graduated from the University of Akron, go Zips. Probably didn't make that top 10 list that Dr. Ron was talking about, but I felt I got a good education for the money that I spent. I think there needs to be a combination of online classes. I can remember vividly sitting in a class of 30 students watching a TV of the professor teaching a math class, sitting in a class of 300 down at E.J. Thomas with one instructor. Now, those are the bread and butter, I believe, courses that universities really depend upon. They need those general credits. Now, maybe there's a way to provide that experience that gives the student the opportunity to maybe not spend as much time on campus, but to get some of those general education credits out of the way. We just had a program in Rotary. Steve Moore came from the high school. We talked about all the different programs that the students can participate in that get them college credit before they even graduate from high school. I'm all for that. There needs to be more of a partnership between our high schools and our colleges, more of a partnership between our business world and our universities, because we have students. There's nothing against liberal arts. I have a finance degree myself. They're graduating and there are no jobs out there.
That's true.
And I think education comes in a variety of forms. You know, whether you go for 4 years and you graduate, or you do an apprenticeship to be an electrician or to be a welder. You know, some of these welders are making 6 figures.
Yes.
And they're doing very well, where the person graduates with a degree in English and he has $45,000 worth of debt and he can't find a job at a pizzeria.
Right.
You know, so that's going to make it awfully hard for that individual to survive and even thrive in that particular type of an environment. I noticed that Northwestern was in the process of, with their master's, their MBA program, cutting it down to 1 year, because the candidates could not afford 2 years, and when you do the math, there's just no way of paying that thing off.
Right.
Given the type of job you're going to get. Some of them go into the public sector, where they're going to have that debt hanging over their head for the next 30 years.
Well, and I do agree with you about the money wholeheartedly. My undergrad alma mater, and I went to Akron for my master's too, so go Zips. But my undergrad alma mater is up to $35,000 a year. I mean, that's unaffordable for people. So they give scholarship money, but then that's why the college was now on the watch list of, do you have enough money to be a viable college still? President Velotis says that it's fine, but who knows? I agree with you. I was lucky that I had full scholarships and paid teaching positions for my master's or my PhD, or I probably would not have earned them, because I would not have wanted to accrue the amount of debt that people have to nowadays. And also, fewer scholarships are being rewarded because of the money. So I agree with you that the affordability is a huge problem.
Oh,
And
even
it
this
used to be
Penn
you
State
could-
online thing is $535 a credit hour.
A credit hour?
Online.
Wow. Yeah. It used to be that you could go to college and work a part-time job. That's what I did.
That's what I did.
Have you know, maybe a few loans, maybe a grant or two, you know, a Pell Grant or something, and you could graduate with very little debt, if any, because you worked your way through. Now, it seems either the student doesn't want to work, but just as Ron pointed out, the graduation rates, I think, have really fallen over the years. So,
Right. And that's often because they are working so much that they don't have time to take full classes every semester, so they keep delaying it.
We'll circle around to how that worked in the 60s, but I went to the same university as both of you, and I'll bet we have different opinions on this topic. Patty, where are you coming down?
A lot. I agree with a lot of what's been said. You know, talking about cost, my first semester at Akron U was $208 for 16 credits. So it gives you an idea how much inflation. This was in 1967. So it gives you an idea of the changing costs. I don't think that online is going to replace the buildings for a number of reasons. No, I think that they cannot provide those in-depth courses, as Natalie was saying. You know, I'm a math major. It is, and you took a math course online. You cannot get into the depth and do it online without the feedback. You know, this idea though of online really has been that type of modeling has been around for a while. You mentioned the television courses. Most of my general college courses at Akron U were in front of a television. I know everybody had to take psychology, and you sat there in front of a TV and watched the television with 300 other people, a tape that had been made 5, 6, 7 years previously, so there was no interaction whatsoever. They were the most ineffective classes that I took because you didn't have that interaction. You couldn't question. And even with the online experience, I don't think there's that attention giving that you have. You don't have the people sitting next to you commenting on what's going on. I've never taken one. Another concern I have, and maybe none of you have seen it, but I know people that have supposedly taken online courses, but they had somebody else take them for them. And it's very common and very easy to do. You show up.
I thought about that too, the
form of
cheating.
plagiarism.
Oh, it's unbelievable. They show up, they take the test. I mean, how do you know that? Of course, I don't know how most of the testing is done now, if it's papers that you submit. But if you have to sit there and do a test, all you have to do is, someone wants to take a math course, they go all the way through the course and they call Patty and say, hey, come over and take my test for me. I wouldn't do that, but it's possible, and I do know people that have done it. Do I think they'll completely replace the building schools? No. I mean, let's be honest, they're never going to take away the college football and college basketball and all of this. I mean, those are the money makers for the universities, and they're going to keep them open just to
I can't imagine that the University of Akron makes any money on football. Nobody shows up for the games. I mean, the stadium's empty.
That's true, but your major universities, and I mean, you look at the money that's put into athletics, and I mean, this is huge. My thing with college, though, and I've always felt this way, is I think college is a place where you go to advance your knowledge. That strong liberal arts background, you learn critical thinking, you learn to think. Unfortunately, people look at college as a place to learn a trade. And I'm not sure that's what college should be. I think we need to have more trade schools, as they had in the past, that if you're going to be a machinist, if you're going to be a plumber, if you're whatever that job might happen to be, yes, you might be able to get some basic college courses out of the way, but go to that trade school for that training. We have vocational programs in high schools that are fantastic for kids, and they can walk out of there with a job that pays well. They don't necessarily need to spend $60,000 on a college education to do that particular job. Should they be better educated? Yes, they would be. You also addressed the courses and the things that are done in high schools right now. At present time, if you're in high school, you can take a course, basic courses at Akron U, for no money at all. Right. And they count towards college credit and high school credit. And a lot of kids are taking advantage of this because of the increased cost. So that's really cutting away from some of the students that are they're still going to the universities, but they're not getting paid the same amount for those kids. And they also have the AP courses, which has greatly increased even since I've retired, in which you take the course in high school, and I think in some cases those courses are better taught in a high school situation.
I couldn't agree with you more. There's one young woman who I'm close with, and she goes to Wadsworth High School, but the last 2 years she absolutely has been at the University of Akron almost every day. And so when I was leading a workshop that she was in, and I said something about, and can you ask your peers this? She goes, oh, I don't hang out with anybody at high school. I don't see anybody there because I just go to Akron every day. So I don't want students to lose the high school. Why do we want everyone to grow up so fast?
No,
let them have the high school experience and then have your college experience.
I could have that junior high, but high school.
Right. Kids were not involved. They were losing that high school, which I think those high school years, which are important for kids.
Yes, I agree.
To one of your comments, it reminded me of one of my favorite quotes, that education is not so much to help you learn to earn your daily bread, but to make each mouthful taste sweeter. Isn't that a loaded quote?
Yes.
That is, and I agree with that. And that's Bryan talking about the liberal education, and that's some of you said here, and I have a short-term memory, that it does foster critical skills, critical thinking. And I think that's a big point of it. Also, you need, as well as your AP courses and so forth in college, we need to get the money to support somehow to bring back band, bring back chorus, bring back shop in high school.
Yes.
Because a lot of places are losing that, and I think those are critical things too.
Fortunately, not here.
And it
Yes.
does prepare you more for the real world.
Yeah, and there's some places, well, in Akron where my grandson goes, I think it costs $800 a year to be in the band. Yeah, at Firestone High School.
Well, with pay-to-play
Now that I've said
figures-
that on the air, we'll probably get responses back telling me I'm
I don't
wrong.
want anyone to think that I'm not for liberal arts degrees, critical thinking. I'm all for that.
Yeah.
But when the individual graduates from college and there's no hope for a job to pay back that loan and to use that education, I think that's putting them in a desperate situation.
I agree.
You know, so I don't think you just go to college to learn a trade or I'm hoping to get a job. I think most people that go to college want to work.
Yes.
They want to use that degree. You know, Dr. Nat here, she uses her degree every day. She's getting a lot of dividends off of that. And it would be sad to think that you'd go through and you graduate with a degree and you're a critical thinker, but you don't have a job.
I had a boss one time, as an executive recruiter, he said, don't forget the liberal arts students. He said, we can hire all of the Harvard MBAs we want that know exactly what to do, but they don't know why. I thought that was an interesting comment. I wanted to get back to, back in the old days when I was in college, we had one TV course, and personally I liked it. And one of the reasons I liked it is that I took so many courses where the instructor or professor or whatever they were, I don't think we ever had professors that actually showed up in a classroom. But the
Sent to TA.
pardon me.
Sent to TA.
But they would not. Excuse me. When the lecture was on tape, the instructor did not get off track and start preaching about the Vietnam War or something. But I enjoyed. I thought that the lectures were very good. Of course, you couldn't ask any questions. And at the end of each lecture, you took a 5-question test on a Hollerith card that practically anybody could have sat there and filled out. I think.
It was, well, this will upset Ron. My chemistry course that I took showed up the first day of class, and he said, open your books to, it's on TV, chemistry on TV. Open your books to page 1. Open to page 1, and he started reading. I went back the second day, open your book to page 20. He started reading. And I thought, and I went to, and I knew the teaching assistant that was in the room, and they took attendance. And I said, I learned to read in the first grade. I'm going to do this, I'm not going to be here again. I have other things to do. And so I didn't get punished for that. But I got an A in the course, but it was only because I had a good chemistry teacher in high school. The kids that were in that class
And you
didn't
knew
learn.
how to read.
And I knew how to read. Kids in the class didn't learn anything.
One of the things that I'm concerned about, to Ron's point, it's awfully hard to take an online course with a lab. You have to
Exactly.
have your own equipment. When I think about universities, I think about them in addition to being learning institutions, which I think is not necessarily the top priority. But I think of them as centers of innovation, and that the innovation takes place in a crossbreeding of ideas among people. When I think about the places like Caltech, where the students do such incredibly innovative things, building solar cars, and I don't know how you do that online.
You don't.
But there are a lot of other courses though that are suitable for online or appropriate for it. But here's my concern: those are money makers. Those courses. How expensive are the technical courses going to be if all those other money-making courses are not around? I don't know that universities are going to have to be reconfigured, is my thought.
Our present, mortar buildings like Akron U, Penn, do they accept college credit from online universities?
Depends on the
Yeah,
university.
totally
You have to
depends.
watch that.
Yes.
You have to watch that. What's the accreditation?
Yes.
What groups are accrediting it? There are some that are advertising internationally accredited. Well,
Right.
that's bogus because
And-
there are no
and the
international
University of
accreditation
Akron won't
boards.
accept it at all. I mean, it
Yeah.
totally,
You got to be careful. You don't walk into a job interview and get laughed at because you went to a Mickey Mouse University.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Sorry, Walt Disney.
Thinking like a recruiter, I would also have to ask myself, if I had somebody that was homeschooled as a child and then got their degree online, would I really want to hire them? I would think that there's so much of personal development that's been
Well, that's
lost.
what I was trying to say earlier. Like, it's about relationships for me.
Yeah.
When I mean, I was very fortunate. I never had a TV teach me. My father did at Ohio State. Even back then, had a TV teaching him, because I went to a small liberal arts school and then went to 2 different graduate schools. But graduate courses are the size of a liberal arts school. I was never in that mass lecture class, so I always gravitated towards those smaller courses to teach, because I wanted students to have that personal connection. And I have a student now, highly successful, makes more money than I ever will in my hope to earn in my life. He's a producer at a television network in LA, and he calls me regularly. Natalie, I need advice for this. Natalie, this industry is eating me up.
Do you
Can
send him
tell
an
me
invoice
this?
after the conversation?
And you know what? That would be smart of me right now, but I don't. And he's just a regular person. You know, he said, you inspired me so much because you were so hard on me and you forced me to do my own work, and I had to write these essays that I hated, but that's what got me to where I am now.
Okay, now in the short period of time that we've got left, what kind of ideas do you have on how to make college affordable? It can't continue to increase, the cost can't continue to increase at the current rate.
Stop inflating the administrative level. The University of Akron doesn't need 25 vice presidents. 2 is good.
I think we need to leverage technology and use it much more. I'm not talking about just online. There's a lot of technology that could be used to make that whole experience better for everyone.
Right, more efficient.
As a
More
liberal, I have to
efficient,
say we need very smart and intelligent government help here. We're not getting. We're
isn't
not
that an
getting smart,
oxymoron?
intelligent
Right,
government help.
I
That's
agree.
probably an oxymoron, but
I agree.
Partnerships.
Well, listen,
partnerships.
Partnerships between the private sector and the public university.
That works.
Yes.
Where they work together and create
two-year
those centers of
colleges.
innovation.
Yeah.
well, thank you very much. Again, we could have gone on a lot longer with this. I'd like to leave you with a quote from Abraham Lincoln. I love this one. The philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation will be the philosophy of government in the next. I hope you all agree with that, because we're seeing it now. The philosophy of the 60s is our philosophy of government now. Thank you.
Thank you.
And good night.